So we'd like to cover for our scope today a definition of what are we talking about, what do we mean by succession planning, what are some of the trends and also some of the challenges that organizations face in this competitive space, the different perspectives that different players within an organization bring, and then focusing a little bit more on the technology side. What is the role of software, who's using software, to what extent, and then looking specifically at Meta4's succession planning tools, and Maria will be showing you the demo. So you've briefly been introduced to the three of us who will be involved today. I know we've got a selection in our attendees today. Some of you are already Meta4 customers, others are prospects and exploring the marketplace, and others are probably just interested in what's out there and what can we find out a little bit more is happening in succession planning. So I'll just do a very brief introduction. Meta4 have been in the HR technology business for 25 years now. Over 1,300 customers globally in all continents of the world, 18 million employee records, and our focus is purely on HR. We reinvest 20% of our revenue every year into research and development, and much of that is targeted at the areas of talent succession planning. So if you want to find out more about Meta4, of course please do get in contact, but we want to focus mainly right now on succession planning itself. So as we go through today, we're just going to be using a few polls, and I would just want to start with this to get a gauge for our attendees today. Simple question: does the organization that you're currently working with use succession planning? And if so, there's a series of possible responses. So let me just see if I can launch this one. Hopefully you can all see the poll in progress now and start to just make your responses there online. And this will just give us an indication of the extent to which the organizations we have represented are currently using succession planning, and we can see if that mirrors what we found in the marketplace in general. So I can see most of the responses are in now. Just a couple more responses if people want to add those in the last couple of seconds here. Great. And so if I share those results with you, you should hopefully be able to see we've only got two categories represented. So just over a third of your organizations do use succession planning both for senior employees and some other groups. And almost 2/3 don't currently use succession planning but are planning to do so in the future. So that wouldn't be out of line with the statistics that we look at in the research and that we come across in practice. It is a relatively new management discipline, HR discipline, area of management, and it's really being escalated in importance at the stage that we're at in the war for talent, as it's been termed at this stage. So thank you for those responses, and let's just carry on here. So a definition of succession planning, lots of definitions out there, but basically what we're talking about is identifying and then developing employees for critical roles within an organization. So those critical roles we'll come on and talk about a little bit more. Could be because of seniority, could be because of a skills shortage. However the organization has defined that is the process of identifying upfront potential successors and developing them, putting proactive plans in place so that those employees are ready to succeed the current incumbent when the positions become available. There are lots of benefits of succession planning. It provides really good visibility of the bench strength of the pipeline, the talent pipeline, and it enables an organization much more quickly to identify where there are gaps, either now or in the coming year or coming couple of years, and gives the time to address those. So it shows vulnerabilities, it shows areas of strength. From the employee's perspective, it assures them that their capabilities and their development are organizational priorities. We all know that it can be really discouraging to work in large organizations where you're not really sure anyone knows what you're capable of or what your aspirations are. And succession planning and the tools that come with it really help employees to understand that that is an organizational priority. Again, we all know what it's like probably to work in organizations where important critical job holders leave or are suddenly moved to another position. There's been no forward thinking about how to provide continuity. Opportunities can be lost, there's discouragement and disruption in that immediate team often, or in the organization as a whole if it's a very senior position. And succession planning ensures that organizations can respond and react really quickly to potential new opportunities. So whether that's opening a new site or a new office, moving into a new country or a new marketplace, developing new products, we all know how fluid in different industrial sectors are at the moment, and it's only those organizations that can respond really quickly to those opportunities that are going to be best placed to compete effectively. And finally, it makes sure that organizations are focusing and exploring the capabilities and the knowledge of their internal candidates before turning to the external market. So sometimes it's too easy to just quickly say, right, we need someone, we haven't got anyone internally, let's look outside, without really making sure that we do know what the capabilities and aspirations of our current employees are. So lots of different benefits and of succession planning. With all of those benefits, we know that talent is the key competitive ingredient at the moment. We know with demographics and globalization, ease of mobility, all of those contribute to the importance of knowing and growing your own talent. So with all of these obvious advantages, one would expect, wouldn't one, that every organization has excellent succession planning processes and systems and tools. But is that actually what we find when we look at the research and when we look at organizations today? There are many benefits, but there are also a lot of challenges. And so we're just going to do a second poll to get your input at this stage. In 2014, Burson did some research, many of you may be familiar with, that showed the percentage of organizations who hold their leaders accountable to do their succession planning, to identify and develop their successors. So let me again open the second poll for you. You should see that launching on your screens just now. So we're asking, what do you think that percentage is? When Burson did that research, what percentage of organizations do you think currently have strategies in place so that their managers and their leaders are actually being held accountable on an ongoing basis for planning their own succession and also the succession within their teams? I see results coming in thick and fast here. Some of you a little bit more optimistic than others on this. And I think we've got just about everyone having voted here. Great. So I'm going to close that and share those results. So you can see 11% felt that between 50 and 60% are being held accountable, and then 44% felt in the two categories, 10 to 20% and 20 to 30%. So I'm going to just go back to the PowerPoint here and show you what the findings were. 18% of organizations currently hold their leaders accountable for their own succession planning. So 44% of you got that right. But it is astonishing in many ways that with all of the benefits that are evident from succession planning, more organizations aren't actually saying this is a key performance aspect, key performance indicator that we should be holding our leaders accountable for. Other things within the research show us 25% of companies agree that there is an adequate pool of ready successors for their CEO position. So let's just reverse that. 3/4 of companies don't have an adequate pool of ready successors for their most senior position. Just over half of companies are grooming a specific candidate for their CEO. Again, that means that almost half of companies don't have a specific person in mind for that key role. Almost 2/3 of CEOs are concerned about the future availability of key skills. And gaps in leadership are cited by almost 90% of executives as an urgent impediment to achieving their goals of building a workforce to meet their future business objectives. So the realities on the ground are, practice seems to be showing us that it's relatively new management tool that's being used, just being introduced, still certainly isn't being done by the majority of organizations, even for the most senior positions. And that this is a concern to CEOs strategically as they look at what can help them to achieve the goals that they've set for themselves and their organizations. So succession planning has many benefits, but it's hard to do. That's one of the reasons why it isn't done in every organization yet. One of the reasons for that is everyone's bringing their own perspective. So we have senior executives who will have questions like, well, what talent do we need to succeed in the future? What do we have today? The key question sometimes is, where is talent a key differentiator for us? And that will differ depending on the organization, the context, the industry. So in some organizations, sales could be the real key differentiator. In others, it could be innovation and new product development. In others, it could be smooth customer service processes. So it really depends on the business model. But it's essential that we understand for each organization what is the key differentiator for us and how well are we doing at growing that talent for today and for the future. HR questions are likely to be, how can we best be defining and measuring talent? How can we be equipping our managers to own succession for their own teams? And how strong is our pipeline now? And that will guide us to where priority is needed for the future. Employees will be asking, what do I want from my career? What am I willing to invest? What are my aspirations? And can I achieve those aspirations here? Or do I need to be looking elsewhere? So a very individual perspective, and one again that succession planning will help them to understand what are the potential here, what potential paths are there, what potential for development for me in my particular situation. Managers asking, how well am I doing at selecting and developing my team? Where can I mitigate the risks? So where am I particularly vulnerable? And are my team positioned well given their performance and potential? All these different perspectives come together as we look at succession planning, and our tools and our approaches need to provide those different viewpoints so that all of the actors involved can very much participate in the process. Out in the marketplace, there are lots of different approaches and tools, but essentially there are key elements in any approach to succession planning, and we'll just run through those quickly now. So the first stage is, who are you as an organization going to see as critical positions and critical position holders? That can be jobs that are a certain seniority or a certain discipline. You may recognize that the market is particularly tight and therefore replacement of staff, should they leave, will be particularly problematic. Whatever the rationale, the organization starts by highlighting who are we going to see as these specific critical positions or jobs within our teams. And then secondly, identifying potential successors, so that the organization decides on how will you identify people who could potentially step into the shoes of those current incumbents. Traditionally, that was done in formal succession planning meetings with executives facilitated by HR. That can still sometimes be the process, but technology can be a real enabler here, where you'll come on to see when Maria does the demo, it's increasingly easy to say, if these are my criteria, tell me everyone in the organization who matches those and to what extent they match them. And that enables us to be considering a much wider pool of talent as potential successors, rather than being limited just to those individuals who are known by the people who happen to be involved in the discussion. Having identified them, it's important to have rigorous and well-planned processes to evaluate and to compare. And again, that's going to be different types of tools used by different organizations, but that evaluation and comparison will lead on to decisions being taken and links to development. So succession is not about saying, yes, this person could do the job tomorrow necessarily, but by saying they have the fundamental competencies and building blocks. We need to expose them to this, we need to give them access to this network, we need perhaps to increase their knowledge in a certain area. So that all feeds into a dynamic development plan for that individual. And then the final stage is recording those outcomes, making decisions about readiness, and where there are multiple successors, that's also likely to include a process of ranking the candidates. So different elements that are common to the majority of succession planning approaches. So what's the role that technology can play today in succession planning? Technology can't do your succession planning for you. It can't decide which roles are critical, it can't measure the potential or assess the readiness. But when you've designed your underlying model for succession planning that suits your own context, technology can be a great enabler. It can speed up the decisions, it can give you ready access to the data that you need when you need it. It can make the process much more interactive and alive as you have all of the information you need at your fingertips in an easy to access way. So again, last year, Burson did a survey showing that a certain percentage of organizations doing succession planning currently use succession software. So final poll for the day. I'm just going to launch that and just invite you to respond, give your guess of what did Burson find in terms of the percentage of organizations who are already doing succession planning. How many of them use succession planning software for their own processes? And again, I can see nearly everyone's voted now. And I'll close that one and share the results with you. So you can see just over half of you felt that 30 to 40% were using software, 10%, 11%, 40 to 50, and optimistic third of you felt 50 to 60%. So let's close down there and then go and see what the responses were that Burson found. So almost dead in the middle there. There's about 46% of organizations don't use software to manage their succession. So just over half are currently using software of some type. A further 20% have only had that software in the last 1 to 3 years. So you can see that means 3 years ago, there was about 30% of organizations who were doing succession were using any sort of software. And that gives us a feel for just how new this is to many organizations as they're introducing software to improve their processes. When they're asked, how much do you want your succession planning software to integrate? Unsurprisingly, perhaps 58% want full integration with a talent suite, and that's what Maria will be showing you in Meta4's product. A further 21% wanted a new module that they could add on to their own existing talent software. 19% wanted integration with an HRIS, and just 4% were looking for a standalone solution. So again, reflecting that in succession planning, it's right in the heart of so many areas of talent, isn't it? It's drawing on data for performance and for potential, for development, for careers and aspirations, and therefore the benefits of integration are quite evident. Okay, so just coming to the close of this before I hand back to Maria, what does Meta4 succession planning offer? Full integration, succession planning can be done even through the talent matrix. Those of you who are able to attend our first webinar of this series, we looked in detail at the talent matrix. That's, I think, available online if others want to have a look back if you weren't able to attend. Career development planning and performance. You can see easy at a glance profiles for employees, talent profiles, easy to navigate around the charts, to see successes, to spot gaps, to do employee comparisons, and then to search for successors against criteria that you have set up. So this is just a sneak preview. This is one of the key screens that Maria will be talking us through, and you can see here very simple, easy to understand organizational structure for succession. There's lots of colors going on, there's numbers, there's data, there's actions that can be done, and this is really the driving seat of our succession planning tool. And I'm not going to steal Maria's thunder by going any further. So we want to show you today how we view existing succession, how easy it is to change existing plans, knowing that they're fluid and they need to be easy to change. How do we drill down to see employee details? How do we find potential successors and then compare those? And what's the manager's perspective on succession? So at that point, I'm just going to change presenter and hand you over to Maria, and Maria will show you what Meta4's product looks like, and then we will have some time, as Bettina said, for some questions at the end.
Okay, hello everyone. Well, my name is María Rodríguez. Betsy, first of all, I would like to know if you're seeing my screen now.
Yes, I can see it, yeah.
Okay, so, well, let's start with the demonstration about the succession planning module that we have planned today. So as Betsy was mentioning during her PPT presentation, there's lots of information that we can see in this screen, which is our main screen for the succession module. On our left column, as you can see here, we have some filters. I already applied some of them. I will just explain later. So we can use these filters to find the specific people or the populations that we want to work with. Okay, in this case, as you can see here down in the screen, we already selected, the having a successor as one of the main filters that we want to focus on, and the pre-sales and sales work units. Okay, I have two work units because I'm just focusing on all the sales area. So we could also select more filters. As you can see here, we have different ones here. I think that maybe it would be interesting to focus on our key employees, for example. That would be a good filter to add in order to succeed people. Or I could decide not to select key employees, but key jobs. Okay, that's of course something you can choose when you're working with your tree. I'll just leave it like this. I selected my key job. It's Arthur Lane as a sales director. You can see it here. So once we have selected our population, we're going to just delete or hide this column here on the left, so we can see the whole information. You can see we have all the children open here. So we have the whole tree open right now. So let's focus on Arthur Lane. He's the first person we can see in this succession tree. We can easily expand the children, as I just mentioned, and review the whole succession plan with this view. As you can see, we can easily find out who his successors are, the number of people who are succeeding in Arthur, the ranking for the two of them. With 1 and 2, we could easily change this classification here, and as you can see, it will automatically change everything. Okay. The information regarding if there are successors or nominees. In this case, well, both successors for Arthur are successors, but we have a nominee here, Jessica James. It's a nominee for Jit Larson, as we can see by the dotted line, which links the two people. We could also check who the successors are, of course, and if they are key employees or have a key job. And even check if they are marked to succeed different people. As you can see with Jessica James, she has a small pink 2 here, which indicates that she's also a successor for another person. Okay. If we wanted to see less or more information, we could simply check the view here by clicking on these little buttons here, simplified view or a full view of our employees. Let me just leave it with the normal one in order to see all the information. We could also expand the details, as you can see here, viewing the position in the metrics for each of our employees, or take some actions that we will see right now. So once we have the different successors defined for Arthur, HR could have a quick comparison for the successors that he has by clicking here, compare all successors, and we will have a summary for the two candidates. Okay, with this pop-up screen that we are seeing. But maybe that information is not enough, so we could just go into our employees' talent profile in order to see all the information. Those who joined our talent seminar webinar last month could probably remember this talent profile that we saw from our talent matrix. If not, well, we'll just go through it really quick. Connection is going a little bit slow. Let me just check what's happening. Well, it's not working, so I think the internet's gone, or
the connection is gone.
Now it's working. Now it's working. Okay. Well, just the Wi-Fi connection, you know. Okay, here we're able to see, as I was mentioning, the talent summary for Elizabeth with information regarding this year and the past ones, the professional preferences that she selected from her employee self-service, the current job she's in with the salary data, etc., development actions that we've taken with this person, and the ones that have been or not completed. We have all the information here. We can see her career plan with the gap that she currently has with the current job and the one that she has with the next job in her career plan, and the languages that she speaks. Okay. So, of course, at some point we could decide that we want to add someone else as a possible successor for Arthur. So if we wanted to do so, we could just simply click on this Actions button and add a new successor. We could manually add someone that we have previously identified by just typing his name here. Let me just add Nicholas, as I think he would be a good match to succeed Arthur. And if we click on Add, we would have this little summary with the position in the matrix. The status, I'll define this person as a nominee, not a successor, and the successor type. Okay, if I click on OK, you will see that he will become a third candidate for our succession plan. So, in order to continue with the different tools that our system provides and to finish with this webinar today, I would like to finish my demonstration today by showing you how the search tool works in Meta4. Okay, so now that we added Nicola as a new successor for Arthur, we're going to look for possible successors for him. So in this case, let me just repeat the same that I did before, add a successor, and I'll find a successor using the search tool to find the most appropriate candidates. So at this moment, what the system is automatically doing is searching for those candidates who meet Nicola's profile. Okay? As you can see now, I think, we can see the different extended knowledge that, or the competencies that Nicholas has in his profile, and which are the ones that our system used to find the best successors for him. Okay. Of course, again, we could add new filters from here, defining job families, nationality, risk of living, whatever we feel could be a good match for our search. Okay. You can see we have a small button here that indicates that, well, we are currently searching for people who match these three competencies, but they are marked as mandatory. So if I select to make desirable two of them, or I could, of course, select all of them, I could just click there. You can see that we have a percentage here to see how these people match the profile that we are searching. We could also go to the accomplishment and select different percentages for different competencies. Okay, if I just select here at 70, for example, because I think that the extended knowledge, general knowledge of product would be more important than the results focus, I would just complete the percentage. And as you can see, our matching will automatically make these differences here, okay? Once we have all our candidates searched, we could just compare them again. and as we saw in the previous screen with Arthur, we could just select them from here and click on compare. We would have this small screen that we saw before. Okay. We could create a new pool to work with across the different HR modules, or we could just add them as new successors for Nicholas and go back to our main screen. Okay, and that's everything I was planning on showing today. Thank you everybody for your time today. Bettina, I don't know if there are any questions from our attendees.
Okay, I believe we can perhaps switch back on our videos, and so that you can see us. And thank you, Maria. Thank you, Betsy. We will have some minutes to answer some of the questions that you might have. Until now, we haven't received questions. I had prepared some of them just in case, and just to start. And perhaps while we are talking, some of the questions might come in and might pop up. But one of the things that occurred to me also is, Betsy, as this is really something that we have seen that not many companies are yet using it, and if they are using it, they have been using it for just a couple of years. How would you start defining, for example, these critical roles? Which are the roles that you would, for which you would start defining the succession plan? So where to start here would be one of my questions. How many critical roles do you define within a company? How many successors do you need to have? I'm sorry, but we don't hear you.
I was on mute. Can you hear me now?
Yes. Yes, thank you.
Okay. Yeah, I think those types of questions, Bettina, are the essential ones for organisations who are just embarking on succession planning to start thinking through. And the answers will be different for each organisation. So, for example, a professional service organisation with a focus on management consultancy, for example, is in a very competitive marketplace, is likely to find it difficult to quickly replace people, and really those people are its only competitive advantage. They are its product, if you like. And so they're much more likely to say, we want to do succession planning for most of our people. We want to view most of our positions as critical, and we should know and be planning and be focused on determining what's the pipeline for those people. Other organizations with a much broader spread may say, in our marketplace, in our location, it's fairly easy for us to find new financial advisors or to find new customer service representatives, whatever that pool is. It's fairly easy, and their impact strategically on organizational success is relatively low, and therefore we are only going to focus on those really pivotal hinge positions, the ones that mean that if we do this better than our competitors, we will be more effective in the marketplace. So those are the types of organizational questions to be asking. In terms of the numbers of successors, again, generally when organizations start doing succession planning, it's tempting, isn't it, to make it really complicated and with all the bells and whistles and all the functionality that you've ever seen in any product. But essentially, you want to make sure that you get the foundational principles right. Who are our critical roles? Let's get a successor in place for those. Let's start thinking about talent pools, because those all build into succession planning as well. And let's make sure that the essentials are there. A basic, essential way of evaluating in a fair way. A basic approach to how are you going to define readiness? How are your managers, with the assistance hopefully of your human resources professionals, how are they going to determine whether someone's going to be ready in 6 months or whether it's going to be a couple of years? Or for a really senior position, whether they're on track to be the CEO in 5 years' time? And so asking and answering those essential questions is important. You can put in succession planning software, but if you haven't done that that groundwork for your organisation or in your context, much of your effort may be wasted. So I always encourage organisations to start there. It sounds basic, but start there and make sure that those answers are clear, and that you're engaging managers throughout the organisation in determining what the approach is, the best approach is for your organisation.
Okay, just one question that has come in. Thank you, Stuart, for doing the question. It's a bit related to what you were mentioning on there are certain sectors where it works best, or where it makes more sense. He's asking if we might know what employment sectors are mainly using Succession. I'm not quite sure if we can answer that today, but if you have perhaps a knowledge on that, Betsy, that would be great. If not, we can definitely try to find out and help you out with that later on.
Sure, I'm sure we can access more detailed research on that, but certainly my feel from the research and the involvement that I've had in organisations is it tends to be the larger ones who first of all start with succession planning, so perhaps not industry specific, but the large global multinationals have a lot to gain from succession planning. They're the ones who perhaps have thousands or hundreds of thousands of people all over the world, but don't have easy visibility to how a successor in Korea could potentially be moving into Japan, how someone in Germany could easily be going to France. So they're the ones who really have started pioneering succession planning. In terms of industry sector, the majority of the research and the case studies that I've read does come from a professional services background, from service organizations. That doesn't mean that secondary or tertiary organizations, secondary and primary organizations don't do it. I'm sure we can all come up with good examples of manufacturing organizations who are. But I think the pioneering steps and the initiators have tended to come from those sectors where talent really is their critical and their competitive advantage. And so the consultancies, the professional service organizations are often the ones that we see highlighted in the research.
Okay, thank you so much. There's another question coming from Joanna, and this is a bit more tactical and probably related to our solution. Can you please explain what is the difference between a nominee and a successor?
Yeah, so when we were designing the solution and talking to different organizations, it became evident that again, it comes into the design of your succession planning. So many organizations want to say, I want a two-stage process. So just in the same way as when you're recruiting, you put someone on a short list potentially, and then you say, yep, I want to go ahead and interview them. It's the same kind of rationale here. So you may do a search like Maria showed and come up with 6 individuals. And then you may do some comparison, have some discussion and say, okay, I want to nominate 2 or 3 of those individuals as successors. They seem to be a good match. But at that stage, they're just a nominee. Then some organizations will have a more formalized process at that stage to say, I want to get feedback from their current line managers, I want to approach some of their peers. So a more formal assessment, at which point they say, okay, I had 3 nominees, but I only want 1 of those to be actually appointed as the successor. And so at that stage you can change the status to say, so we can see here on the screen that Maria's got showing him. The Nicholas at bottom has got a dotted line showing that he is a nominee. The other 2 have got the bold lines showing that they have actually been nominated as a successor. So that's a feature that some organizations will use, others won't, and they don't need to have that feature switched on.
Okay, I think we are almost on time. We are running out 1 minute later. I had one final question noted down for you, which is, can the succession planning only function along the organizational structure, or is there any other type of flexibility?
Yeah, and this was one of the key aspects again of the design. I don't know if you can show us the filters, Maria, on the left-hand side, you know, when you do the initial population selection there. Obviously, it depends on what the context is that you're operating in as to what perspective you want to see. So if I'm a finance director with international responsibility, I may say, okay, I don't want to have to go through the whole organization picking out the finance teams in each country. I want simply to be able to see certain jobs. So only show me jobs which are in the finance job family, for example. And Maria is there showing you the filter that would enable you to do that. That will give you an easy view of only finance positions. But you can then go on and make that more nuanced and say, actually, I only want to see key positions in the finance job family who don't currently have successors. So at that stage, I'm looking for vulnerabilities within my function. So that would be a finance director's perspective. But if I was the country director for Germany, I'm not only interested in finance, but I am only primarily interested in Germany. So then I might want to go down the work unit tree and select the Germany country office and all the children organizations below it. If I'm in HR, I may be looking across the entire organization, but I only want to see key jobs and key positions. So the flexibility is to give different people, different users, the views that they'll need to do very different types of succession planning, whether it's coming from a centralized point of view or from a specific country or from a specific functional perspective.
Okay, thank you very much. I think we've reached the end of this session today. Any other extra question that should rise, please send it in. There's no problem. We will be answering them. We will be sharing the presentation, and we will be sending you out an email with the recording of this presentation so that you can see it back again and review it, and perhaps then other additional questions might rise. By closing this webinar, you will be asked to fill in a very short questionnaire that will give us a little bit of feedback on the utility of what we have been showing you, and also some information to provide you with new webinars and new areas that you might be interested in. So thank you so much for completing it, and thank you so much for joining us today, and I hope you enjoyed it and have a really nice evening. Thank you very much. Bye-bye. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.